he was like the mosquitoes that get in the tent, you know. They're gonna bother you forever, get in your ear. But that was my own little satisfaction to swipe at him and every other cookie cutter bully I ever met in my life, you know. Yeah.
Well, now I have to ask you, you know, because particularly knowing how you feel about, you know, about Locke and his work, when you've had the opportunity to voice some of those characters in the Space Jam, what was that like?
It was very surreal. Everyone in the world auditioned for it. Everybody.
Oh, of course.
And I was working on the Howard Stern show at the time, and oh wow, you like that? Baba Booey.
What's Robin Quivers like?
I'm going to ask him what he really thinks of Marge Schott. You know what? We did all that stuff to have fun, but a lot of it was to point up the grotesqueness of racism, because we touched on those subjects. You can't pretend they don't exist, but you can't pretend that people that talk like her don't exist. You have to know that that's going on out there. You know, he's black. He scares me. I don't know. You know why? You know what's wrong with the president? I don't know. There's something about him. Yeah, you know what's about him. You know, and it's not very honest, or it's almost like hidden, cowardly stuff. And we were like stirring up the scab, you know, ripping it off. And it's like, let's go, let's talk about stuff. And the best way to talk about anything was to make fun of it and show how absurd that stuff is. How absurd, how words can mean nothing if they, you know, if you took Rush Limbaugh and you take him seriously, all you got to do to get out of that is pretend it's a 4-year-old girl saying what he's saying. And you go, this shit ain't shit. I'd rather have a 4-year-old. Man, she should do a show. But yeah, it's little psychological games to keep the boogeymen out and the bad guys. Some of my other heroes I worked with, I got to work with June Foray, who was Granny in Tweety and Sylvester, and she was on Rocky and Bullwinkle. She played Rocky the Flying Squirrel, and she's 90-something and she still comes to work every day. Yeah, she has a driver, and yes, Miss Foray, you know, and she's like, oh, thank you. But I loved her so much, and the day they introduced me to her, I was actually going to be working with her in a cartoon, and I was going, June Foray. It was like that, do you remember that song by, who were they? The Psycho Killer. Oh, Talking Heads, yeah. Meeting her was like that. And meeting anybody or actually doing any kind of work that people think is great, it's like, you know, and you may find yourself, you know, behind the microphone with June Foray. You may find yourself, it's like, my God, how did I get here? How do I work this? And that's exactly what happens, because your life just rushes before you and you go, wait a minute, I went from being like this little dope in Roslindale, Massachusetts that thought making noises was cool, and now I'm sitting with one of the cornerstones of the industry. Oh yeah, this thing's rather flaccid.
Let's switch.
Yeah,
there you go.
See?
There you go, Cass.
From flaccid to placid. It's a bad joke, and it wasn't worth stealing in the first place. So yes, you have more questions, I'm sure.
Well, I do, but you know, I'm feeling a little guilty. We've got so many people in here.
Everybody all revved up for questions and stuff?
Yeah, I'm sure somebody has some questions.
There's a room full of Q's, and I'm 1A.
Okay, well,
I feel like Ringo in a room full of John Lennons. Yes.
Yes. Some series, animated series, you hear that there's lots of scripting and stuff, and you can't ad-lib at all. Like I would guess the commercial work is like that. Have you ever worked on a series that let all the voice actors sort of sit around and ad-lib, and that's what they would end up animating? I'm thinking. You know.
The best directors will absolutely wring it out of you if they have to, exactly what they're looking for. They don't take chances that way. But the best directors also say, do you have any thoughts? You know, we got what we need, you were great, and you have any ideas? And it's like, yeah, I kind of do, you know, and they'll either wind up on the floor, snipped out of the action, or they'll actually run with it. I did a commercial for Brisk Iced Tea a long time ago, and it was Babe Ruth. And it was like, you know, I had to listen to him. He sounded like he swallowed a potato or something. His real voice, yeah, because he was girthy like this, you know. And he sounded like a sock throat. It's like, yeah, that's brisk, baby. And so when I did that, I thought, I gotta listen to these guys. So then they did one with Rocky Balboa, and somebody asked me, I said I was in the commercial, and somebody asked me, hey, who did Stallone? You know, and I go, Stallone did it, like as in Sylvester. I said, because I was gonna say that wasn't you. It really sucked. He was trying to be him, and oh, what a disaster that is. He was like, you know.
That was really Sylvester Stallone.
It was really him, but it didn't.
Stop motion animated.
But it sounded like somebody putting it on, and it was him putting it on. I guess it's kind of clever, and had him having a laugh. Well, if somebody dump truck pulled up in front of your house with like $80 million and said, "You want to make fun of yourself?" Yes, I do.
And you could dump it out also.
So he did that, but the point of my story with that is, I did, Mickey, the trainer. You know, he's a wrecking machine, Buck. He'll knock you into tomorrow. And at the end, I scream at Balboa because he's into it. Hey, this is brisk, you know, and he's drinking, and I go, save some for the sequel! And that was an ad lib, and they left it in. Yeah, they call it improvisation.
I like that.
And there was one, the Geico commercial that I had done about a couple years ago. It was, oh, who was it? Oh, it was, yeah, Geico, and they used Elmer Fudd for the commercial. And it looked like a real Warner Brothers cartoon when it started out. I mean, it could fool you. And you go, hey, what are they showing a cartoon for? Because he was like, shh, be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits. And the guy goes, cut. Elmer, it's rabbits. Rabbits? No, rabbits. Rabbits. And he goes, no, rabbits. And they didn't know how to end it. I said, well, that's nothing bit. That's right from the cartoon. Were you going to take it anywhere? And so I just walked off. He just leaves the set. You know, I don't care about any commercial. He's like, I got to go hunting. Or whatever. But he said, this director is starting to rub me the wrong way. and the director, who was being a pain in the ass to me to see what I could come up with. You know, he's like, it's rabbits, you know, and I was saying, what does this guy want to get his voice all over the commercial? You know, he's just the director. But it was part of the bit, so I was stupid. I was surprised. But he got what he wanted, you know, and I was happy to offer it, but just as easily could be, you know, stink up the joint if you make a wrong move or decision or whatever. So there. Got anything else, Junior? Okay. Talk about being an old man. What is that crap? I'm way older than you. You see, you gotta never lose that spirit, a child spirit, because when the minute you forget how to play, that's the day you turn into an old geezer.
Actually, my son has a question. I know you're Billy West. This is the Billy West Q&A.
I am?
Yeah. Yeah. Who are you?
Oh, you came in after my big intro. I'm the panel moderator. My name is Ulysses Campbell.
Thank you.
He is a great radio-friendly voice.
Well, as quiet as it's kept, I do have a demo. Okay, can you help me out?
I can't help you out, but I'll listen to it.
That's it.
No, you know what? Let's put it this way. We're saving a seat for you.
Hey, cool.
Okay? That's what I tell anybody that wants to do voiceover. Because whenever I met my heroes, they would wink at you because they could see a spark. They could see that kindred being, a little version of them, like just wondering, and they want to talk to the wizard, you know. And they recognize it, and they go, you know, we're saving you a seat. And I used to hear that, and I go, he's just pulling my pud or something, you know, I don't know. And it was true. Everybody that I know acts like that, that sees talent or sees somebody that is just can't even put it into words what they want to do, but you can tell, you can read their mind because it's just, the vibe is so strong. And you know, I know that voiceover, there's a lot of people that want to do it now, and it's unfortunately, you know, like the celebrity thing, again, my heroes weren't celebrities. I don't have any respect for somebody that's a celebrity, and you have to guess what for nowadays because there's a zillion of them on TV, you know. The guy who's in Las Vegas who happens to have a bundle of money walks down the street and calls Lindsay Lohan, Firecrotch. Firecrotch. He's famous for something I have no idea. But it's the object of just being famous. But what warrants fame is a whole different story, or accolades and praise for anything. Is you gotta do something. You gotta create something because people are genuinely interested in new things or new approaches. And, you know, I always was. I know I'm a man of my time, but I always try to be pretty progressive and crazy. You know, you could bring spirit of craziness to anything. Like Zoidberg. I grew up watching the Three Stooges. You know, like, hey Mo, you took my money, right? Yeah? Then he's Shemp, he's come back to haunt us. And Larry became the voice that I based for Stimpy, the cat. Will you bite me, Ren? You know, it was Larry from, hey Mo, there's too much tinsel on the tree. You know, hey Mo, I pissed on my shoe. Once a stooge, always a stooge. But that became Stimpy, and the voice for Zoidberg was two guys that were old show business guys, and I think that they were both vaudevillians in old show business. And one of them was this marble-mouthed guy named Lou Jacoby, and when I saw pictures of Zoidberg, I couldn't think of anything else because he had all this. I said, who is like that in show business periphery? Who do I know? And I was thinking, yeah, this Lou Jacoby, because he was in Arthur, the movie Arthur with Dudley Moore, and he was that guy who came up to him, leans in, goes, what's it like having all that money? And I thought, that is so precious. It's so gorgeous. And I fused him with another guy named George Jessel, who was a joke teller in the old days on live theater circuits, Broadway, wherever. And he would go, this is a Yiddish joke, so I don't expect everybody to understand it, but he went, hello, Mama? He did a routine like he was on the phone. Hello, Mama? Yes, it's your son, George. From the money each week? You know, a lot of people don't get that. I don't know why, but it's like, you know, she don't remember. George who? I'm the guy that sends you money every week. And he had kind of a marble mouth too, and I liked his attitude, so I cold fused them or super collided them or whatever you want to call it. And you can come up with something sort of unique. And I put Stooge stuff in everything that I do. You know, Stimpy would be like, that was so Stooge. And I've had like Zoidberg do it, and oh, and the Zoidberg. that riveted me to the floor when I was a kid. I had a head full of that crap before I went to school, grade school. I had a head, and here I was. You know, my mother hated it. She says, "How can you watch those awful men?" And it's like, guys, young guys love to watch awful men. They love it. They don't want to be taught a lesson. They want to get clobbered over their head with a fake hammer. You know, it's like there's nothing greater in the world to a 9-year-old, I think. But if the Stooges like murdered somebody, I wouldn't go out and murder somebody. There's the difference, you know. No, because there was parental guidance of some sort. You know, during Beavis and Butthead, they try to blame fires on Beavis and Butthead because some kid went and burned something because he saw it on TV. No, he burned something because his mommy wasn't around, or his daddy, or any older siblings weren't around. This kid was stuck in front of that TV, and they said, meet your new babysitter. You know, so how can you know really anything or what's going on? And you could be influenced, but I think with a little guidance, kids are born learning machines. I remember I was. I hated it when someone went, you know, what are we doing today? You know, and I'd be looking up and I couldn't talk, and I'd be like thinking, good little baby. You know, I hated that talking down. I thought I was smart when I was a baby. You know, because you do hear some baby language in your head. You're trying to figure out what English is, but you were a creature of selfishness. You know, like babies are selfish, you know, I gotta take a dump, you know. No, right here's fine. You know, you just do whatever you want when you're a baby, so sort of pretending to be childlike later on and making it work for you through a character is, it's a real good thing to do, you know? So shut up and take my money!
Wow, why not sorry? There was a young lady over here who had a question.
The younger the better.
There we are.
Oh yes, I remember you.
Hi.
Hi.
Of all the characters that you voiced, do you have a favorite?
I love to say I do, but I put so much into just about everything I ever did that's like asking a parent who their favorite kid is. You know, you can't really say. I love screaming and yelling. Any characters that scream and yell are up the top of my list. You know, because it's cathartic to do that. I used to do that when I was like, you know, 21, 19, when I had my first junk box cars. The freeze plug, whatever that is, would always go. You know, because no one ever tended to the car before you got it. Maybe that's why it cost $1. My first car cost $1, and I got the title and everything. I was so proud of myself. And then when the muffler blew out and it was making like down the street, I was like, oh man, and I would just pull over and the radiator would be fizzing and I'd just roll up the windows and go, and I'd be fine. You know? I'd be fine after that. It really is. I mean, instead of beating, you know, putting your fist through a wall or something, that was just as good. But if somebody, you know, came over to my car and said, having problems, huh? Well, you won't later on in life, because what you just did by screaming like that is going to make you a lot of money. You know, if it were that type of situation. But I don't know. You know what? A lot of times I don't even know what I'm doing. Like they'll just say, "Have you got an idea for something?" And it's not like it doesn't come from schooling or learning or anything. It just comes on through your life experience. You know, all the people you met in your life, like the dopey teacher who would keep telling you something and forgot he already told it to you 20 times. You know, so you get into that, you know, I think what you people have to learn is discipline and not to slam my door when you come in here. And then he would say the same thing like the next semester, what you people, you know, and then if you did infract his rule, he'd call you over and say, what you people have to learn. You know, like I'd never heard it before. And like there will always be some sort of character that has some odd thing about them or whatever, and you try something that you got a kick out of earlier in life, or that you learn, hey man, there's this guy, he's so uptight, you know, and he doesn't want to have any fun, he doesn't want to even appear to be human, he wants to be this gakiron, you know, talking machine that just says stuff over and over and over, and that used to tune me out. I would zone out. I zoned out in school. I was really good, but then I noticed that other kids resent you if you're real smart and hate you, so I dumbed it down and just skated from there. I didn't want any trouble, and I didn't much care either, because my goals were beyond what they were teaching me. And I wasn't sure what they were, but I knew it was going to be something nutty. You know, and I said, this school is not going to teach me anything that I think makes me excited or makes my mind go off and start sparking. But, I mean, everybody's got to go to school. I'm not saying don't go to school. But, I mean, the minute I got out of school, I just grabbed my guitar. I didn't go to college. I grabbed a guitar, and I was singing, and I joined a band, and I traveled all over the place, and I was in a million little bands. And eventually, like back in those days, the guitars would snap strings constantly because you never changed them. They were old. I couldn't afford a new pair. And amps would blow up because they didn't have the circuitry quite down yet. And whenever that happened, I would go up and I'd be so embarrassed, so I would just start saying junk. Just saying it, like, well, what do you think of that? You know, and it was like, no one ever heard like a rock and roll guy just stand there and go, boy, I feel like shit. So what do we do? I mean, I get someone maybe fixing the amp, and I would start doing voices and stuff, and they like that better than they like the music a lot. You know, for real. And but you know, I lost my spandex license in 1978, and I had to figure out something, so I started doing stand-up comedy. It wasn't very good, but I could do voices, and that people would suddenly perk up, you know. And I got into radio very early. Radio was a great place. I have a love-hate relationship with radio. I know how good it can be and how sucky it is. You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. Theater of the mind, there's nothing better. You know, like you'd sit here and have your eyes closed and you would get every little thing, every nuance, every meaning. And radio used to be great like that. And, you know, then it just, too many schmoes were running the business. And they had these myopic little playlists, and they ground everything down. They wouldn't let talented people pick their own playlist. We don't trust them. You know, and it's like, well, you know, all they got to do is fill ads. As long as they do a good job with the commercials, what do you care? You know? And they got all uptight, and it became like any other business, and it turned me off. I said, you know what, I've had about enough of this. Because I was starting to get scolded and junk like that. I was like, no. I was bratty, you know? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
What sort of voices would you, I mean, because you mentioned you like characters that scream. Are there any particular characters out there that interest you that you would like to do, or some sort of mishmash or conglomeration of characters that you'd like to do? Or?
Jackie Puppet.
I used the Jackie Puppet voice for a character on Futurama. It was the character, the Ball of Light character. Who just comes up, he's nothing, he's light and fractals or whatever. And he's coming up and he's like talking about how lonely he is to Leela. You know, it's like, my phone doesn't ring. He had this broken, spent party voice, and I used to do him on a Stern show for the Jackie Puppet. Hey, what does it mean on the Indian guy's head when it's a red dot? What? Coffee's ready. You know, he told bad jokes. But his voice was very interesting and stupid. And the more stupid, the better. I like it.
Well, and you're very observant with that. I mean, I think that that's one of the things that separates voice actors. Well, and I guess actors in general, if you're good, you know, because you were talking about how you remember, you know, the teacher and, you know, what he said. And, you know, I've got to believe that a lot of people don't internalize things like that.
Well, it's funny you say you've got to believe. People have to believe you when you're performing. It's got to seem somehow rooted in reality and not a put on, and not fakey sounding. So I always try to, even if it was the weirdest voice in the world, I'd try to somehow make it seem like it could be, it could exist, or that kind of character could exist. Because you want people to just relax and enjoy it for what it's worth, for the comedy, for the artwork, for the animation. You know, it's a big concerted effort. It's not about me or John DiMaggio or Tress MacNeille or any of us, per se. It's about everybody that was involved. That was a very special unit. The voice people would stun me every day. I went to school every day when I got in that room, you know, because I'd see somebody who was having the best day of their life, you know, firing on all 8 cylinders, and I'd go, wow, I better be damn on my toes today. I better, you know, really do a good job, because the same tide raises all boats.
Yes.
It's all about inspiration.
Another question. You, sir. Sorry, first.
I was curious about your process of developing a voice. I saw an interview with you one time. Someone was asking you about Mr. Horse from Ren and Stimpy.
Which is such bull crap because I didn't do the voice. Someone got it in their head that I did, and they were like, but Mr. Horse. But what about Mr. Horse? I said, what about nothing? I said, do you ever listen to anything? You know, I'm telling you, I didn't do it. I don't mean to scare you away.
Perhaps it's another character then, but I remember you mentioned that John Kay was kind of looking for a thing from like Kirk Douglas because he was a big fan of Kirk Douglas.
He was, yeah.
And I was just kind of wondering, like everyone would agree that your voice sounds different to you in your own head than it does when it's recorded and you hear it back. You know, it always sounds a little bit different. How do you get to a point when someone like challenges you, like I want a voice that's sort of like this? How do you start? Like you take that voice in and develop it in your own, like, you know, vocal cords, and you record it, back to it, and where do you get to that point where you say, like, I got it, this is the voice that this should sound like? How do you
Well, you don't try to sound like it, like, you know, note for note. You don't try to, like, make a carbon copy of it, because, again, that's bringing nothing to the table. You've got to bring something, even if it's Kirk Douglas. So, you know, I mean, even in the episode Haunted House, where they were in a haunted house, they said, this is like a good place to kill 10 minutes. You know, and later on there was going to be someone trying to kill them. And what happened was there was a ghost in this episode. And he was very meek, and he talked like this. You know, and he said, I'm going to have fun scaring them to death. You know, not unlike Martin the Martian. Martin the Martian. But he would transform because he started to go nuts that they weren't scared of him. So he puts on like some whacked out African tribal mask, and his eyes are blood red, and he fires up the chainsaw. And he comes in, and this is where the Kirk Douglas stuff comes in. He's hovering over them, and it's going, and they're sleeping. He goes, wake up, you pigs! You know, and that's taking Kirk Douglas to the farthest star in the universe, you know? It's like he would be, wake up, you pigs! You know, that's how he was. He was intense. But, you know, in my estimation, I thought it was better to just smash the ceiling, go right through. I always wanted to bust up stuff. I was always kind of like an anarchist, you know, just like, just disassemble it. And, you know, like Ren's cousin, Sven. You know, they were saying, you know, he's counting, and they were saying 13, 8, and I was saying, why don't I just make up words, like put the wrong letter on the front of it, you know, 13, you know, 8, Zelf, and it's just like, it's acceptable, because everything's, you know, it's easy to think that everything has been done. They closed the patent office in the United States like sometime in the 1800s because they actually believed that everything that was going to be invented had been invented. They really did. And you feel like that way with television and movies. It's like, hey, they've done it all. They've done everything. And it's like, no, if some smart-ass little kid comes along and has like some new ideas, they can smash it to pieces and recreate it in a way that's palatable to most people. They identify with it somehow, or it has a emotional resonance. You know, that's what I always try to do. I really care about it. I have passion about it. You can't ask, you know, Will Smith about his passion for doing voices. And he'd be like, right. But listeners think we're whistling.
Let's try and sneak another couple of questions in here.
Hi.
Hi. I was wondering about how much creative leeway you get. I imagine it varies from project to project. And I was particularly wondering about Zach Brannigan and how he's got a lot of Bill Hartman in him.
Yes.
And I was wondering if that was your decision or if it was a decision that was made by creators of the show.
I can tell you that before he died, I still lived in New York City. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do when I grew up, you know. I was well into my 40s. And there's no limit, man. There's no finish line. Don't worry about it, everybody on your case. What are you going to do? But what are you going to do? Same as you, nothing. There's no jobs. You know? But what are you going to do? I mean, here I was thinking, what am I going to do? I don't know. Let the wind blow me around. And I said, I'll go out to California, you know. That's what everybody advised me to do. And I it was a good move. It was a great move. But Phil Hartman called my house years ago. I didn't know him. I hadn't met him. And my wife, I was coming home from New York City. You hear the gates of hell clang shut in back of me. And I called my wife to see what was going on, and she said, you know, Billy, you know who just called here looking for you? I said, who? She said, Phil Hartman. And I said, V, you know, I know a bunch of guys that are very capable of pulling off an elaborate joke like that. How do you know it wasn't me? And she said, no, this was him. He was calling from the set of news radio, and he was on a break, and he and some people were talking about me, and one guy somehow had my number. Yeah, oh, anyone can get your number. Everybody thinks, you know, I got my phone locked, I got this thing, and then all of a sudden, how you doing? What's it like?
IMDb Pro.
Yeah, I can jailbreak anything. And then I'm going to chop you up and bury your pieces in the high desert. Bye.
So, does that answer your question?
I veer all over the place because I'm just nutty that way. But Phil Hartman called me and he just wanted to say that he was a fan, and I was stunned. I was totally stunned, and I was like, well, I kind of know who you are too. You know, I loved him. I thought he was the greatest. And he actually said, you know, you ought to come out to California. I said, yeah, people are telling me that. And he says, seriously, he said, I'll help you get acclimated. What a generous, non-insecure person that would say, you know, here's where you should be, and I'll help you. And he did, you know, I mean, he was, next thing you know, I did an M&M's commercial with him. He played this pompous character named Chucky Barr. You know, and one time Tia Carrera took a bite out of my head. She was another celeb I worked with. You know, just seeing her going like that is always great with beautiful girls. The New Year's Eve commercials were like that. Yeah, it was like all these girls on a couch biting me, and it's like, cool fantasy. It is. It's so surreal. I can experience things from that level. It's like having your chocolate ripped out of you. Isn't that a crazy thought?
Not at all.
But that's, oh yeah, right. You don't melt my mouth.
Please, not in front of the audience.
Okay, nicely done, sir. Nicely done. But Phil Hartman, when he died, they were auditioning him. He was going to be Zapp Brannigan, and he died. And so they weren't sure what they were going to do, but they took the chance on my first audition and showing me a picture and saying, what would you do? And I do remember when I was chatting with Phil Hartman that we shared a love of big dumb announcers from the old days. The guys that carried their balls in a wheelbarrow. You know, and loved the sound more beyond anything else in this universe, the sound of their own voice, yeah? You know, and they would add these phony little addendums, you know, that weren't words. It was like hamburger helper for words. Aha, I see, yeah. Because they're so afraid that if they don't fill the air with their precious frickin' voice, that the world will come to an end, swinging with every pitch. Radio guys were like that, a lot of them. And I thought, how cool would that be? And he loved the same kind of stuff I did, and he was very influenced by those guys that had the big sonic, reverberating voices. And I always called them big dumb announcers. You know, because little did I know I was going to grow up and there'd be a new species of dinosaur. You know, at first there was the giant hulks that just were, you know, they would be extinct really easily. And these were the big dumb announcers, you know. Coming to a theater near you. You know, and I'd say, they're all going to die out. You know, meteor or no meteor. And then I grew up to be a new species. You know, we were faster, we were more facile, we were raptor-like. And we were called Little Dumb Announcers. But when I auditioned for that, and I used that radio phony kind of voice based on a few disc jockeys that I knew. But I was influenced by Phil, because I remember he always like deferred to those kind of things. The big phony announcer, you know. It's like you know, kids learned over the years. Like when you see these guys, all they have to do is be talking, and you go, he's lying, because it didn't sound like anybody you knew. It was someone roaring at you. You know, don't you wish you were me? The 11 o'clock news. You know, and these guys were empty-headed vessels. They were empty vessels. They had things to read always. The only main important thing was, I hope I never lose my voice. God, I hope I never lose it. You know, that's all they cared about. Oh, and this buttered toast hair that makes me look camera ready. I actually had a fake picture taken. It's at my table if you want to come over and say hi. It's an on-the-air sign behind me, and I've got like, you know, glasses, and I look like the phoniest newsman that ever lived. Hi there. And it's just fun for me. Because, but you know, that voice, Zap Brannigan seemed to be the natural evolution of that kind of guy. She's a beautiful ship, all right? I'm gonna fly her brains out. Careful, let them in. I've made it with a woman. So yeah, it was based on this trumped up, ginned up phoniness that I just fell in love with.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question.
One more?
You in the back.
I was wondering, when you do a character that was not originally yours, like Bugs Bunny or Elmer Fudd, do you try to bring your own spin to it? And also, if they don't want you to bring your own spin to it, do you try to slip it in there anyway?
You know what it is? They were bugging me. It was bedeviling, because everybody that came in the room had a different idea of what Bugs should be. You know, some important nobody leans in and goes, he sounds too Jewish. Okay? Some other nitwit would come by and go, he should be more Bronx. He's real tough. Okay, thank you. And then some other pinhead would come by and add their 2 cents. And it's like, nobody knows anything. You gotta pick an era if you're gonna find a Bugs Bunny to emulate. You gotta pick what 10-year period he was during those times. It all depended on directors. And I just did the best that my dictates and my standards told me to do. It's not my character. I didn't have tons of pride based. I had an affinity for the character, and I loved the character, but I didn't have any pride, because all the best work was done long before I was born. I brought my skills as a technician, basically. I knew my place. And I got to work with Michael Jordan, Doc. The closest thing to a religious figure that we have. I made $1 million in carrots. Michael Jordan was the coolest guy ever, because at this rap party there was like thousands of people, and most of them were around him. And he was shaking hands with everybody. Everybody's saying his name every 5 minutes. I don't know how he can think. It's like, Michael, 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 hey, Michael, hi, Michael! And he would just be cool about it. And then his agent, whose voice he knows, that's the one to listen to, he goes, Michael, listen, this is Billy West. He did Bugs in the movie. And he reached over like 7 people. They go, Billy, how you doing? How you doing, man? You know, and his hand was like that big. It was like shaking somebody else's hands up on each other like the wall. And I just said, wow. But he's an artist. You know, there was artistry to what he did. He wasn't just like some lucky dope that just had some moves. You know, he was reinventing the sport. Those are the people that I dig the most. I love those kind of people that can reinvent something that's become stale.
That's sort of like you.
Yeah?
I think so.
Replaced by a team of super black men that have far superior abilities.
Oh God, I hope so.
Yeah. I do too. I
Hey, look, though, they're already gathering outside the room.
Okay.
That is our time. But let's hear it from Billy West.